HOA President Margaret locked my disabled daughter in a metal cage under the burning sun because her singing was too noisy. When I found 7-year-old Lily trapped, dehydrated, and terrified, I knew this evil woman would pay. Now she's facing 6 years in prison for what she did. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I want to tell you about the worst day of my life. It was a Saturday morning in July, and the sun was shining bright over our small town of Riverside Heights. I was making breakfast in the kitchen when I heard my daughter Lily laughing in the backyard. Lily is 7 years old. She has cerebral palsy, which means she uses a wheelchair to move around. But that never stops her from being the happiest kid I know. She loves flowers, butterflies, and singing songs. Even though her words don't always come out clear, her joy is something everyone can understand. That morning, Lily was in her special swing that my father built for her. It hangs from our big oak tree in the backyard. She was singing a song from her favorite movie, her voice loud and full of excitement. I smiled as I flipped the pancakes. This was our peaceful Saturday routine. Then I heard the sharp knock on my front door. Not a normal knock. An angry knock that made my heart jump. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door. When I opened it, I saw Margaret Henderson standing there with her arms crossed. Margaret was the president of our homeowners association. She was 60 years old, always wore expensive clothes, and always had something to complain about. Since we moved to Riverside Heights 6 months ago, she had been making our lives difficult. "Your daughter is making noise again," Margaret said without even saying hello. Her face was tight with anger. "This is unacceptable. We have rules in this community about noise levels." I took a deep breath. "Margaret, she's just playing. She's a child. Children make noise when they're happy." "I don't care if she's happy," Margaret said coldly. "My husband and I are trying to enjoy our morning coffee in peace. That screeching is disturbing everyone in the neighborhood." My face got hot. "She's not screeching. She's singing. And she has a disability that affects how she controls her voice. I've explained this to you before." Margaret's eyes became hard like stones. A disability is not an excuse to break community rules. If you cannot control your child, then perhaps this neighborhood is not the right place for your family. She handed me a paper. It was an official warning from the HOA. "This is your 3rd warning this month. One more complaint and we will start fining you $500 per incident." Before I could respond, Margaret turned and walked back to her house next door. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling angry and helpless. Lily didn't deserve this. She was just being a kid. I went back to the kitchen and tried to calm down. The pancakes were burning. I threw them away and started making new ones. Through the window, I could see Lily still swinging and singing. She had no idea that someone hated her happiness so much. My phone rang. It was my boss, Mr. Chen. "Sarah, I'm sorry to call you on Saturday, but we have an emergency. The Johnson account has a major problem with their order. Can you handle a video call right now? It's urgent." I looked out at Lily. She was safe in the backyard. Our fence was locked. "Yes, I can do the call. Give me 5 minutes." I went outside to Lily. "Sweetie, Mommy has to do a work call. It will take maybe 1 hour. You can keep playing, okay? I'll be watching you from my office window." Lily smiled big. "Okay, Mommy. I sing more songs." I kissed her forehead and went inside to my home office. The window faced the backyard, so I could see the swing and most of the yard. I started the video call with my boss and the client. The problem was complicated. Numbers were wrong, shipments were delayed, and the client was very angry. 20 minutes into the call, I glanced out the window. Lily was still on the swing. Good. I focused back on the computer screen. We were looking at spreadsheets and trying to fix the mistakes. The client was yelling, my boss was stressed, and I was trying to find solutions. 40 minutes passed. I looked out the window again. The swing was empty. My heart jumped, but I told myself to stay calm. Lily probably went to look at the flowers near the back fence. She did that sometimes. I could see most of the yard from my window. She had to be somewhere safe. The call continued for another 30 minutes. Finally, we solved the problem. The client was happy. My boss thanked me. I ended the call and immediately ran to check on Lily. Lily. Sweetie, where are you? I called as I rushed into the backyard. The swing was empty. Her favorite doll was on the ground. I ran around the yard, checking behind every bush and tree. Lily. This isn't funny. Where are you? Then I heard it. A small, weak cry coming from behind our garden shed in the far corner of the yard. My blood turned cold. I ran to the shed, and what I saw made me scream. Behind the shed was a large metal dog crate. Inside that crate was my daughter. Lily was curled up, her wheelchair sitting empty beside the crate. She was locked inside the metal cage. The July sun was beating down directly on the cage with no shade. Her face was bright red, covered in sweat and tears. Mommy, she cried when she saw me. Her voice was hoarse and desperate. Oh my God. Lily. I fell to my knees beside the cage. I grabbed the door and pulled, but it was locked with a heavy combination lock. Baby, who did this? Who put you here? The angry lady, Lily sobbed. The lady from next door. She came in our yard. She said I was too noisy. She said I was a bad girl. She took me out of my swing and put me in here. She said I needed time out until I learned to be quiet. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely think straight. I pulled out my phone and called 911. My daughter is locked in a cage in my backyard. She has cerebral palsy. She's been in the sun. Please send help now. The dispatcher told me to stay calm and that help was coming. But I couldn't wait. I ran to the garage and grabbed the bolt cutters my father left at our house. My hands were shaking so much it took 3 tries to cut through the lock. When the cage door finally opened, Lily reached for me. I pulled her out and held her tight. Her little body was so hot, like she had a fever. Her clothes were soaked with sweat. She was shaking and crying. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. You're safe now, I whispered, even though I was crying too. I carried her inside to the living room and laid her on the couch. I gave her water, but not too much at once because I remembered that could be dangerous. I put cool wet towels on her forehead and arms. Her skin was burning hot. How long were you in there, sweetie? I asked gently. I don't know, Mommy. Long time. So hot. I was so scared. I called for you but you didn't come. The lady said you didn't love me because I'm too noisy. My heart broke into a million pieces. That's not true, Lily. I love you more than anything in the world. That woman is evil. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. I heard sirens outside. The police and an ambulance arrived at the same time. 2 police officers came in, a man and a woman. The paramedics started checking Lily immediately. She's showing signs of heat exhaustion and dehydration, one paramedic said. We need to take her to the hospital right away. The female police officer, whose name tag said Officer Martinez, knelt beside me. Ma'am, can you tell me exactly what happened? I explained everything while the paramedics worked on Lily. I told them about Margaret Henderson, the HOA president next door. I told them about the noise complaints, the warnings, and Margaret's anger this morning. I told them I found Lily locked in a dog crate after being on a work call. Did you see who put her in the crate? Officer Martinez asked. Lily said it was the lady next door. Margaret Henderson. Is there any proof? Any cameras? My heart sank. No. I don't have security cameras. I never thought I needed them. The male officer, Officer Davis, walked around the backyard. He took pictures of the crate, the lock, and where Lily's wheelchair was abandoned by the swing. This cage was definitely brought into your property. Do you own this? No. I've never seen it before today. We need to talk to your neighbor, Officer Martinez said. The paramedics put Lily on a stretcher. We're taking her to county hospital. You should come with us. She needs to be monitored for possible heat stroke. I rode in the ambulance with Lily, holding her hand the whole way. She was so brave, not crying anymore, just holding my hand tight. At the hospital, doctors and nurses rushed around her. They put N4 in her arm to give her fluids. They checked her temperature, her blood pressure, and everything else. Dr. Patel, a kind woman with gentle eyes, came to talk to me in the waiting room. Your daughter is going to be okay. She's suffering from moderate heat exhaustion and dehydration. If she had been in that cage much longer, it could have been life-threatening. The metal cage in direct sunlight would have been like an oven. She's lucky you found her when you did. Lucky, I repeated. The word felt bitter in my mouth. My daughter shouldn't need luck to be safe in her own backyard. While Lily was resting in the hospital, Officer Martinez came to update me. We went next door to talk to Margaret Henderson. She denied everything at first. Said she never entered your property and had no idea what we were talking about. She's lying. I said. We know. We asked if she owned a dog crate. She said no. Then her husband came home. Daniel Henderson. When we asked him, he said yes, they had a large dog crate in their garage. They used to have a German Shepherd that died 2 years ago. Officer Martinez sat down beside me in the hospital waiting room. Mrs. Mitchell, I want you to know that we take this case very seriously. I've been a police officer for 15 years, and this is one of the most disturbing cases I've ever seen. A grown woman targeting a disabled child like this, it's beyond comprehension. I nodded, wiping tears from my eyes. I keep thinking about what could have happened if I had been on that call longer. What if the client had more problems? What if I couldn't get away for another hour? Would Lily have survived? Don't torture yourself with those thoughts, Officer Martinez said gently. You did nothing wrong. You were working to support your family. Your yard was secure. You had no reason to think a neighbor would commit such a horrific crime. This is entirely on Margaret Henderson. Officer Davis joined us, holding a notepad. We've been canvassing the neighborhood. Several neighbors have come forward with their own stories about Mrs. Henderson's behavior. It's painting a very clear picture of someone who has been abusing her position as HOA president for years. So she used her old dog's cage to lock up my daughter, I said, my voice shaking with anger. We asked to see the garage. The dog crate was gone. We asked Mrs. Henderson where it was. She became defensive and angry. She said we had no right to search her property without a warrant. That's when her husband got suspicious. He said the crate was definitely in the garage yesterday. He saw it. Officer Martinez continued. We explained to Mr. Henderson that his wife was being accused of false imprisonment and child endangerment. His face went white. He said he wanted to cooperate fully. He took us to the garage and showed us the empty space where the crate used to be. There was a dust outline showing exactly where it had been. What happened then? Mrs. Henderson started yelling. She said that even if she did put your daughter in the crate, it wasn't a crime. She said she was just giving her a timeout for breaking noise rules. She said parents put kids in timeout all the time. She said she was doing you a favor by teaching your daughter discipline. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She admitted it. Yes. Once she started talking, she couldn't stop. She said your daughter's noise was disturbing the whole neighborhood. She said someone had to take action since you weren't doing anything. She said she waited until you were busy, then she came into your yard. She took your daughter out of the swing, put her in the crate, and locked it. She said she was planning to let her out after a few hours when she learned her lesson. A few hours? In the sun. My daughter has cerebral palsy. She could have died. We know. Mrs. Henderson said she didn't think it was that hot outside. She said kids need to be tough. She showed no remorse at all. We arrested her immediately for false imprisonment, child endangerment, criminal trespass, and assault. She's at the police station now. I felt relief and anger at the same time. What happens next? The district attorney will review the case. Given that your daughter has a disability and that Mrs. Henderson specifically targeted her because of that disability, they may add hate crime charges. This is very serious. Mrs. Henderson could face several years in prison. Over the next few days, the story spread through our neighborhood like wildfire. I was shocked by what I learned. Margaret Henderson had been terrorizing people for years. Mr. and Mrs. Patel, who lived 3 houses down, came to visit Lily in the hospital. "We're so sorry this happened," Mrs. Patel said with tears in her eyes. "Margaret complained about our daughter's birthday party last year. She called the police because the music was too loud. It was 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday. An elderly man named Mr. Wilson told me that Margaret had threatened him with fines when he installed a wheelchair ramp for his wife. She said it was ugly and brought down property values. My wife had just had a stroke. She needed that ramp to come home from the hospital. Margaret made me get special permission and pay extra fees to the HOA. A young couple, the Johnsons, said Margaret had filed formal complaints because their autistic son liked to bounce a basketball in their driveway. She said the bouncing noise was disturbing. We tried to explain that our son needs physical activity and routine. She didn't care. She threatened to fine us every single day. The more I heard, the more I realized that Margaret had been bullying everyone. But no one had stood up to her because she was the HOA president and people were afraid of the fines and legal trouble. Daniel Henderson came to the hospital 3 days after the incident. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red and sad. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to talk to you. I need to apologize." "You didn't do anything," I said. "But I should have. I've been married to Margaret for 20 years. I knew she was difficult. I knew she was mean sometimes. But I never thought she was capable of something like this. I was at work when it happened. If I had known, I would have stopped her." He handed me an envelope. "This is a check for $20,000. It's not enough. Nothing can make up for what my wife did to your daughter. But I want to cover all of Lily's medical bills, her therapy, anything she needs. And I'm filing for divorce. I can't be married to someone who would hurt a child." I didn't know what to say. I could see he was genuinely sorry and heartbroken. "Thank you. Lily will need therapy to deal with the trauma. Whatever she needs," he said. "I'm also resigning from the HOA board. And I'm going to work with the other neighbors to make sure the HOA rules are changed. No one should ever be punished for being different or having a disability." Daniel paused at the door before leaving. "I found something else you should know. When I was packing Margaret's things to move her out of our bedroom, I found a journal. She had been writing about your daughter for months. Complaining about every little sound. Planning ways to get you evicted from the neighborhood. The entries got darker and more obsessive over time. I gave it to the police. It shows premeditation. This wasn't a spontaneous act. She had been thinking about hurting Lily for a long time." My stomach turned. "She planned this?" She sat in her house writing about ways to hurt my child. I'm so sorry. I never looked at her journals before. I thought they were just personal thoughts. If I had known, I would have gotten her help or left her sooner. I failed to protect your daughter by not seeing who my wife really was. After Daniel left, I sat in Lily's hospital room watching her sleep. The 4 drips slowly giving her the fluids she desperately needed. Her small chest rising and falling. She looked so peaceful now, but I knew the nightmares would come. The psychological damage from what Margaret had done would take time to heal, maybe years. A nurse named Rebecca came in to check Lily's vitals. She had been especially kind to us. "How are you holding up, Mom?" she asked softly. "I keep wondering what I could have done differently," I admitted. "Should I have quit my job to watch her every second? Should we have moved the first time Margaret complained? Should I have?" "Stop," Rebecca said firmly but kindly. "You did everything right. You're a single mother working hard to provide for your child. You can't live your life in fear of evil people. What happened is not your fault. It's Margaret Henderson's fault, period." Lily came home from the hospital after 4 days. Physically, she was okay. But emotionally, she was scared. She didn't want to go in the backyard. She had nightmares about being locked up. She stopped singing, which broke my heart because singing was her favorite thing. I found a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma. Dr. Amy Chen was wonderful. She used art and play therapy to help Lily process what happened. Slowly, week by week, my daughter started to smile again. While Lily was healing, something amazing happened in our neighborhood. The neighbors organized themselves. They called an emergency HOA meeting and voted to remove all of Margaret's supporters from the board. They elected new people who actually cared about the community, not just the rules. Mrs. Patel became the new HOA president. Her first action was to eliminate the noise complaints rule. Families live here. Children live here. People with disabilities live here. Life makes noise, and that's okay. The neighborhood started changing in beautiful ways. The Johnson's son could play basketball without fear. Mr. Wilson's wife could use her ramp in peace. And people started talking to each other more, helping each other, being real neighbors. I also started documenting everything for a potential civil lawsuit against Margaret. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Santos, was building a case for additional damages beyond the criminal charges. "The criminal case will put her in prison," Jennifer explained during one of our meetings. "But a civil lawsuit will hold her financially accountable for the trauma she caused. We're talking about years of therapy for Lily, the emotional distress you've both suffered, and punitive damages to send a message that this behavior has serious consequences." "I don't care about the money," I said honestly. "I just want to make sure she can never do this to another family." "That's exactly what this lawsuit will accomplish," Jennifer assured me. "When other HOA board members see the financial consequences of discrimination and abuse, they'll think twice before targeting vulnerable families." The local news picked up our story. A reporter named Michael Chen came to interview me. At first, I was hesitant. I didn't want Lily to be defined by what happened to her. But Michael convinced me that sharing our story could help other families. How many other children with disabilities are being bullied by HOA boards right now? Michael asked. How many families are suffering in silence because they're afraid to speak up? Your story could give them courage. It could lead to real change in HOA laws. He was right. After the interview aired, my phone didn't stop ringing. Parents from across the state reached out with their own stories of HOA discrimination. A mother whose autistic son was banned from playing in the community pool because his stimming behaviors disturbed other residents. A father whose deaf daughter was fined because her service dog barked. An elderly couple whose grandson with Down syndrome couldn't visit them anymore because the HOA said he was disruptive. But the most amazing thing happened to our backyard. One Saturday morning, 2 weeks after Lily came home from the hospital, I heard noise outside. I looked out the window and saw a dozen neighbors in our yard. They were building something. Mr. Patel and his teenage sons were constructing a beautiful covered pavilion over Lily's swing area. The cover would provide shade from the sun. Mrs. Johnson was planting flowers all around the yard in beautiful colors. The elderly Mr. Wilson, even with his walker, was helping to paint a mural on our back fence. It was a rainbow with butterflies and birds. "What is all this?" I asked, walking outside with tears in my eyes. Mrs. Patel smiled. "We're making a safe, beautiful space for Lily. A place where she can play and sing and be happy. A place where she'll always feel loved." They installed soft rubber ground covering under the swing so Lily's wheelchair could roll easily. They put in special sensory toys that made music when you touched them. They hung wind chimes that made beautiful sounds in the breeze. They even installed a security camera system, donated by the Johnson family, so I would always know Lily was safe. When they finished, they brought Lily outside in her wheelchair. Her eyes got so big when she saw everything. "Is this all for me?" she asked in her special way of talking. "Yes, sweetie," I said. "Because you are loved. Because you deserve to be happy. Because your voice matters." Lily looked around at all the neighbors who had worked so hard. Then she did something she hadn't done since the incident. She sang. It was just a few notes at first, quiet and unsure. But then her voice got stronger. She sang one of her favorite songs, and this time, her voice was full of joy again. Everyone clapped and cheered. Some people were crying happy tears. I was definitely crying. My daughter was singing again. 3 months after the incident, Margaret Henderson went to trial. The district attorney, a strong woman named Jennifer Lopez, was taking the case very seriously. "This isn't just about false imprisonment," she explained to me before the trial. "This is about a hate crime against a child with a disability." Mrs. Henderson specifically targeted Lily because of her cerebral palsy. She was annoyed by behaviors that were directly connected to Lily's disability. And she showed no remorse. That makes this case even more serious. The trial lasted 5 days. I had to testify and tell the whole story. It was hard. I had to relive that terrible day. But I did it for Lily. The prosecution's case was strong. They had Daniel Henderson's testimony about the missing dog crate. They had Officer Martinez's testimony about Margaret's confession. They had medical testimony from Dr. Patel about how dangerous the situation was. They had testimony from neighbors about Margaret's pattern of targeting people with disabilities and special needs. Margaret's lawyer tried to argue that she was just enforcing HOA rules and that she didn't mean to hurt Lily. But the evidence was too strong. Photos of the metal cage in the hot sun. Medical records showing heat exhaustion. And Margaret's own words, caught in the police report, showing she had no remorse. I brought Lily to the trial on the last day for the closing arguments. She sat in her wheelchair next to me in the courtroom. When Margaret saw her, she looked away quickly. She couldn't even look at the child she had hurt. The prosecutor stood up for her closing argument. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is simple. Margaret Henderson locked a 7-year-old child with cerebral palsy in a metal dog cage in 90-degree heat because she didn't like the sound of her voice. She removed this child from her mother's property without permission. She could have killed her. And when she was caught, she showed no remorse. She said she was teaching the child discipline. This is not discipline. This is cruelty. This is a crime. And Margaret Henderson must be held accountable." The jury left to deliberate. They were gone for 3 hours. When they came back, the forewoman stood up. "In the case of the state versus Margaret Henderson, on the charge of false imprisonment, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of criminal trespass, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of assault, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of committing a hate crime against a person with a disability, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted in whispers. I held Lily's hand and cried. Justice. Finally, justice. 2 weeks later was the sentencing hearing. Judge Patricia O'Brien was known for being tough but fair. Margaret's lawyer asked for mercy, saying she was a first-time offender who had made a terrible mistake. But Judge O'Brien was not having it. She looked directly at Margaret. Mrs. Henderson, you locked a disabled child in a cage and left her to suffer in the heat because you didn't like the sound of her joy. You targeted this child specifically because of her disability. You showed no empathy, no remorse, no understanding of how wrong your actions were. You could have killed her. And you didn't care. The judge continued. This court must send a message that such behavior will not be tolerated. Children with disabilities have the same right to exist in their communities as everyone else. They have the right to make noise, to play, to be children. Your actions were not just cruel. They were evil. I sentence you to 6 years in state prison. You will also pay restitution to the Mitchell family in the amount of $50,000 for medical bills, therapy, and emotional damages. You are permanently banned from serving in any position of authority in any homeowners association in this state. And you are subject to a permanent restraining order. You may never contact the Mitchell family or come within 500 feet of them ever again. Margaret's face went white. She started to protest, but the judge cut her off. Be grateful I'm not giving you the maximum sentence of 10 years. Take her away. As the bailiffs led Margaret out of the courtroom in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It was finally over. That was 2 years ago. Today, Lily is 9 years old, and she's doing wonderful. She still has some anxiety about being alone in the backyard, but it's getting better. She's back to singing all the time, and her voice is the most beautiful sound in the world to me. Our neighborhood has completely transformed. The new HOA board focuses on bringing people together instead of pushing them apart. We have monthly community dinners where everyone brings food to share. We have a neighborhood watch program where people actually watch out for each other with kindness, not suspicion. Last year, Mrs. Patel started a program called Inclusive Riverside. It's a community initiative to make our whole neighborhood accessible and welcoming for people with all types of disabilities. We've installed ramps at the community center, started a signing class so more people can communicate with deaf residents, and created sensory-friendly events for children with autism. Daniel Henderson sold his house and moved away, but before he left, he donated $100,000 to create a playground in the community park that's designed for children with all abilities. It has wheelchair-accessible swings, sensory play panels, and ground-level musical instruments that any child can play. Lily goes there every weekend, and she's made so many friends. I started speaking at community meetings and disability rights conferences about what happened to us. I want people to know that hate crimes against people with disabilities are real and serious. I want people to understand that everyone deserves to exist in their communities without fear. The support we received changed my whole outlook on people. When something terrible happens, it's easy to think the world is full of evil. But the way our neighbors came together showed me that good people outnumber bad people. Love is stronger than hate. Community is stronger than cruelty. Lily sometimes asks me about Margaret. Is the mean lady still in jail? She'll ask. Yes, sweetie. And she'll be there for a while longer. Do you think she's sorry now? I hope so. I hope she learned that hurting people is wrong. I forgave her, Mommy. My therapist said forgiveness is for me, not for her. It helps me not be angry anymore. My 9-year-old daughter is wiser than most adults. She forgave someone who tried to break her spirit. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It just means Lily refuses to let hatred live in her heart. The civil lawsuit concluded 6 months after the criminal trial. The jury awarded us $250,000 in damages. Margaret's assets were seized to pay the judgment. She lost everything: her freedom, her reputation, her wealth, and her marriage. Some people asked me if I felt guilty about destroying her life so completely. My answer was always the same: I didn't destroy her life. She destroyed her own life the moment she decided to hurt my child. I just made sure she faced the consequences. The money from the lawsuit went into a trust fund for Lily's future and for starting a non-profit organization. I called it Lily's Voice: Advocacy for Children with Disabilities in Communities. The organization helps families fight back against discriminatory HOA policies and provides legal support for those who can't afford it. Our first victory was helping the Johnsons 3 houses down. Their HOA tried to ban their autistic son from using the community playground during peak hours. With our legal team's help, we not only fought that rule but got it declared illegal discrimination under federal disability laws. The HOA was forced to issue a public apology and pay damages. Word spread quickly. Soon, we were getting calls from families across the country. Families being told their children's medical equipment was unsightly. Families being fined because their disabled children made too much noise. Families being driven out of their homes because HOA boards valued property values over human dignity. Last month, we celebrated the 2-year anniversary of our new beginning, as we call it. The community threw a party in Lily's honor. The mayor came and gave Lily a certificate declaring her an ambassador of kindness and inclusion. Local news covered the story. Lily sang a song she wrote herself called "Everyone Belongs." There wasn't a dry eye in the whole park. As I watched my daughter sing in front of hundreds of people, her voice strong and clear, I thought about that terrible day 2 years ago. The day I found her locked in a cage. The day I thought I might lose her. The day that changed everything. Margaret Henderson tried to silence my daughter. She tried to punish her for being different. She tried to teach her that her voice didn't matter. But she failed. Lily's voice matters more now than ever. She uses it to spread love, acceptance, and joy. She uses it to remind everyone that being different is not a problem to be solved, it's a gift to be celebrated. Today is Lily's birthday. She's turning 10 years old next week, but we're having an early celebration because family is coming to town. Our backyard, the same backyard where something so terrible happened, is now filled with balloons, decorations, and laughter. 20 children are here, some with disabilities and some without. Some use wheelchairs like Lily. Some are autistic. Some are deaf. Some are perfectly typical. And they're all playing together, accepting each other, just being kids. This is the world I want for my daughter. This is the world she deserves. Lily rolls up to me in her wheelchair, her face bright with happiness. This is the best birthday ever, Mommy. I'm so glad, sweetie. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Mommy, can I tell you a secret? Of course. She leans close and whispers, I used to be scared of my voice. I thought it was bad because it made people angry. But now I know my voice is special. It's mine. And I'm never going to stop using it. I hug her tight, tears running down my face. That's right, baby. Never stop singing. Never stop being exactly who you are. The world needs your voice. As the sun sets on this beautiful day, I watch all the children playing in our backyard. The backyard that used to hold such trauma now holds such joy. And I realize something important. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. One person tried to break my daughter's spirit, but a whole community came together to help her heal and grow stronger. Margaret Henderson is still in prison. She has 4 more years left on her sentence. I don't think about her much anymore. I don't hate her. I pity her. She missed out on knowing a remarkable child because she was too filled with anger and prejudice to see Lily's beauty. That's her loss, not ours. As for us, we're thriving. Lily is thriving. Our community is thriving. And every single day, Lily sings. Sometimes she sings loud, sometimes soft. Sometimes on key, sometimes not. And every single note is perfect because it comes from a heart that refused to be silenced. That refused to be caged. That refused to be anything less than completely, beautifully herself. And that's the greatest victory of all.